down. You know, some teams have good records, but it's just the way they've been playing hadn't been very impressive. And then, quite frankly, I feel like some bad teams have beat other bad teams. So, I mean, at this point, it's how much do you believe that the team is really good? I mean, Kentucky 5-1, but what win can you point at and say this is a legit team? A&M lost to Bama. I think A&M is actually in better shape than most people think. You know, you come a couple plays away from beating UCLA and them actually having a one-loss record, but how much do you believe in the national scope that this team can really be good in a New Year's Six bowl or have a playoff chance? So, you know, that's what we're judging it off of. I don't think teams are bad. I don't think that they are, like, terrible, but I just don't think the competition has forced them to be really good football teams. Right?
What LSU?
Still, long ways to go.
Even after they win it all?
Yeah, I mean, but, you know, how much did you value Auburn is the question. And Auburn was a pretty good team. I still think they're pretty good, but when you talk about the win that LSU got over them, I don't want to discredit the fact that they played really well in the second half, but you go down 20-0, how much did that have to do with the game and how it actually played out? You had a chance to intercept the ball that probably would have ended the game for you. So there's just a lot of things that you look at, and we do it different. We break film down. We don't just look at the overall scope and say, hey, this is a good football team because they won. How did they win? How did the win look? How did the guys play? As far as LSU, I think they've raised their level of intensity in how they're playing. They just didn't look fully invested in the games before Florida and Auburn. Something woke them up. But when you look across this league and you go beyond Bama and Georgia, who do you really say is like a really good football team? And I'm not sure if you can find one.
On the flip side, what did you think about Auburn in that second half against LSU?
Well, you can't play to preserve wins, not in football. And you know, people talk about. I don't so much get caught up in leads because a 20-point lead in football is 3 touchdowns. It's 3 possessions, and you know for sure that the team you're playing against is going to get 3 possessions in the second half of the game. So, you know, I would put all of that on Gus Malzahn and going conservative and trying to preserve a win instead of going win it. Just like when teams go to prevent defense and they need to win a game. South Carolina almost let Tennessee beat them because they didn't stay aggressive. And I think that's what happened to Auburn. I think Auburn will actually be fine. I think they'll win more games. I think they'll have a chance to compete with everybody they play against down the stretch because they'll learn from the LSU game and they'll take away some things that they did well, but you can't preserve wins.
What do you think, Alabama? What have they shown you so far?
I think the physicality has been probably the most exciting thing about it, especially this offensive line. I mean, it's borderline men versus boys, and the way they're playing the continuity. I don't think on defense, other than Minka, the secondary is very good, but you don't have like that one guy. You don't have Ruben. You don't have Jonathan. You don't. As the defenses of the past, I think this group does it more as a whole. They kind of feed each other. You deal with the injuries, some new guys playing, step right in and make plays because everyone is kind of doing their job and they're doing it at a high level. So, you know, it's an impressive team, but I think the physicality has been unmatched up until this point.
Should Minka be a Heisman candidate?
Defensive players don't win the Heisman. I mean, that's just, you know, that question comes around, and I think Minka is one of the best football players in the country, but he's not going to win the Heisman because he won't have the numbers. Charles Woodson had to play offense to win it, and he was clearly the best college player in football, but he had to have the offensive numbers. Your guy from Michigan, his name escapes me right now. Yeah, Jabril. The only reason he was in the conversation is because he went to the offensive side of the ball. So I honestly don't know how much you could do defensively to win the Heisman when you got backs getting the ball 30, 40 times a game, quarterback touching it every game. I tell people all the time, it's a quarterback award, and sometimes a running back sneaks in there when they feed them enough to get it. So I just think it's terribly hard for defensive players to win the Heisman.
What are your thoughts on kind of the exorbitant point spreads right now among, I mean, like even this game here tomorrow, I think went up to 36. I mean, it seems like every week Alabama's favored by 25 or more.
Yeah. Well, it goes back to your first question: is how much value do you put in how the teams are playing, as opposed to the games that they won or not? And I think right now, I mean, it's cliche to say, but Bama has been playing at a high level for a long time. But if you look at this year, who would you say really challenges them for 4 quarters in a football game? And I don't think one team this season in the SEC has shown that they can put a whole game together that can be on the level in which Alabama has played, except Georgia.
You talk about the physicality of the offensive line. Is that even more impressive given the fronts that they're facing? Because everybody knows they're going to run the ball.
Yeah, it's impressive. I think, too, the threat of Jalen as well kind of creates a conundrum for a lot of defensive coordinators. You can't account for him. And the issue is, if you go into a game with the plan to stop a quarterback, you're going to give up Calvin Ridley, you're going to give up Damian Harris, you're going to give up Robert Foster. So you can't game plan for Jalen. The only thing you can tell your guys is, let's try to keep him in the pocket and make him throw it to beat us. But realistically, how are you going to be able to do that? Because you also got probably a couple All-Americans on the outside that are going to rip you if you try to play man-to-man the whole game. So it's just a difficult stop. I mean, the thing that was most impressive about Clemson last year in the national championship is they just said in their mind, look, we're going to play these dudes man-to-man, and we're going to make them beat us. And they did enough, and they still went down a touchdown and had to have a game-winning drive. It's just difficult to stop when your quarterback brings that element to the game. I mean, everybody's trying to find one. People talk about Jalen can't throw the ball downfield. Give him time then, and he'll pick you apart, because these guys are going to separate. They're going to get open. If you notice some of the passes he throws, it's not a DB within 5 yards of the receiver most of the time. So you don't really need him to be Peyton Manning or Tom Brady. You just need him to make the play when it's there and available. And right now, they're just doing it at a higher level than anybody else.
Does the SEC have a head coaching problem?
I think they have a development problem. You go back to LSU. I mean, these quarterbacks have been highly touted now. They've been, top guys at their position, hadn't panned out for whatever reason. And I think a lot of teams, you kind of gotta, this evolution of college football, you kind of tailor your offense to what guys do best. And I think some coaches in this league have a philosophy, and they want to fit guys into that philosophy, and it just doesn't work. I mean, you have to, if the guy that's touching the ball every down, you got to figure out 2 or 3 things he does best, and you build an offense around that. You can't come in and say, we're going to make you the guy in this offense that we already run. I think you just have a lot of coaches that try to do that in this conference, and it doesn't play to a lot of guys' skill set. So from that standpoint, yes, I don't think these guys are terrible coaches. I think they all have a skill set in some aspect of the game. But at times, some head coaches need to stay out of the way. Ed Orgeron needed to stay out of the way of Matt Canada and let him do his thing, and vice versa sometimes. So it's just trying to find that balance, But when you get to a point where you're going through coordinators every other year and that's not fixing anything, you got to point to yourself.
Well, on that note, there could be some pretty massive turnover this offseason from the coaching ranks of the SEC. In the case of like LSU last year with Les, does Nick shoulder any kind of responsibility or dare I say blame in kind of the way the turnover among the coaching ranks, or should he?
I mean, it's hard for me to say he shoulders the blame, because everybody has the plan to do what he's doing. And it's hard for me, man. I played in the league 9 years. Don't nobody feel sorry for you if somebody good. Like, that's just, I mean, you got to raise your level of play, and you got to figure out what you do best and how you can put your team in a position to have success, man. And when you really think about the grand scheme of things, and I've heard this so many times about everybody compares their coach to Nick Saban, and what Alabama is doing is how everybody wants their program to be. Realistically, you're not going to get there. This is generational type stuff that's happening at this school right now, and I think people have to identify that, and just raise your level. Like, I mean, you can't walk out on the court and be like, I'm not gonna play the Cavs because we don't have a LeBron James. Like, you got to play the game, So that's just a part of what you're doing, and he's built something. He has a system. He fits this thing around listen, you guys have played with Blake Sims, Jacob Coker, and Jalen Hurts and went to the national championship or one game away. That's tailoring to your players, and I think he does a great job at doing that. He switched me from offense to defense, identifying the talent and then developing it so guys can become the best they can be, and then as well as a atmosphere of competition every day. You know it's 14 5-stars that's coming in this next class. Najee Harris was a beast in high school. Bo knows that. Damian knows that. So all of these guys compete against each other, which makes the team better. It's healthy.